Now, blind scaling, this is another thing. So a team that struggles to integrate their own code, now they are scaled, applied, you impose any framework, any scaling frameworks on them. And then, you know what happens? Now you are probably scaling your problems. You are not scaling Scrum or Agile or any framework. And that's what I have seen. And it's such a difficult situation for teams if you apply blind scaling on them, especially the teams with massive technical debt. They're already slowing down, and this imposing scaling framework will create a nightmare for them. And that's what, over a period of time, I learned applying this scaling. And most of the times, scaling needs to be, I would wanted to call it as a kind of a yardstick that needs to be carefully applied and only when it is needed, or sometimes you have to descale to simplify your problems. And that's what I'm of the opinion that most of the problems, most of the organizations, they take pride in complexity. So, and that's why sometimes in order to simplify your problems, you have to simplify your organization. And that's what I learned over a period of time. You cannot operate with a lot of chaos in and around. For example, in one of the bank that I was coaching, so they have a huge technical debt. They have around like 1,242 defects. And then they call all these defects as minor defects. Their unit test coverage is at like 60%. They don't write a single automation test. And because of which, you know what happens? Now they wanted to, a scaling framework has been imposed on them. A famous scaling framework has been imposed on them. Now, the situation is terrible for these teams where they cannot carry their own load. Now they have to, scale with 8 other teams. They have to integrate their piece with 8 other teams. And to me, that's one of the biggest challenges this team is trying to face. Yeah. And I see this often and often. Okay, I don't want to name any framework for sake of argument, because if I name a framework, there are people who are in favor of it. There are some people who are against it. So now there is a lot of favoritism and everything. So I don't want to refer a framework here, but at the same time, scaling you should be really careful with the scaling. Otherwise, instead of getting benefits of scaling, you end up creating more problems for your teams, and the problems usually becomes bigger. And that's what I learned about scaling.